Magazine readers, Ms. Studios listeners, and those who interact with us across listening, reading, reviewing. Welcome to our episode of the magazine, one where we preview the forthcoming issue of Ms. Magazine. And in these special podcasts, I'm joined by Kathy Spiller. She is the executive editor of Ms. Magazine and as well the executive director of the Feminist Majority Foundation. In this episode, we're looking at January 2026 and what's loaded in this special issue, which is powerful and gripping. So sit back and take a listen as Kathy Spiller unpacks what you can expect as you get the next magazine copy. Kathy, it's great to be with you. We have another very impressive issue of the magazine coming out. Give us a breakdown about what our readers can expect.
Thank you, Michelle. Good to see you. This is a jam-packed issue that will be out in January. The cover story is about the many other uses for the abortion pill, Mifepristone, but how anti-abortion politics have blocked research and development for those uses. These are uses that a lot of your listeners are going to identify with. Mifepristone is a potential treatment for fibroids. Fibroids are the major cause of hysterectomies in this country. Something like 70% of white women will develop fibroids, 80% of Black women. And the only solution now is hysterectomy or some kind of invasive surgery. Mifepristone shrinks the fibroids. They essentially go away and they're no longer a problem for women. Another issue that young women in their reproductive ages typically suffer from endometriosis. 10% of women in the reproductive age range suffer from endometriosis. Again, with severe cases, the only solution is surgery, invasive surgery of some kind, maybe even hysterectomy. And then there's cancers, breast cancer, ovarian cancer. It's being researched in Europe for a preventive measure for breast cancers, and Gulf War illness, and PTSD. So it's potentially also a treatment because it also impacts the adrenal glands, and that is the source of depression in many cases, the source of Gulf War syndrome and PTSD. And then finally, I want to mention it's also potentially a treatment for long COVID, chronic fatigue syndrome. Again, very serious, diseases that disproportionately impact women, but also some of these impact men. And it's the abortion politics in this country from the very beginning that has interfered with bringing mifepristone to the American marketplace. From the earliest days, the pharmaceuticals in France and Germany who were producing the drug refused to market it in the US because of abortion politics. And since it's been approved here, abortion politics has interfered with the development of these other uses and with even research into these other uses. And yet women in other parts of the world have access to this to treat fibroids, to treat endometriosis. So it's, we want American women to know that abortion politics here is interfering not only with access to reproductive health care services to abortion and its use in miscarriages, for example, but also that it's interfering with other healthcare advances that could be made. That's the cover story. And of course, another major piece, Michelle, by you, an extraordinary piece, your interview with one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims, a real survivor, Jess Michaels, a very powerful piece. I think the big takeaway for our readers as they read the piece is going to be, when she finally realized it was not her fault. I mean, it was just an extraordinary moment. And I think many, many, many women and men who have been subjected to sexual violence and assault also carry those feelings. And I think it's a tremendous opportunity for them to also identify not only with her, but with their own experiences and to understand it's not their fault. And then there's all the other stuff that, we have national news pieces on the most extraordinary results from the fall elections and
They were
the
quite extraordinary.
the decisive nature of women's votes, young women's votes especially, but all women's votes delivered those victories in New Jersey and in Virginia and Pennsylvania. And we have a very good piece on how Black women have suffered the most from all of these thoughtless layoffs in the federal government. Everything that was done by Doge and everything since disproportionately impacted Black women who now, are having trouble finding jobs. And then we've got a great piece on an upcoming tour reenacting some of the suffrage tours that the first two women to ever drive across the country in an automobile in the 1910s and
Not
retracing those
Thelma and
steps.
Louise
No, but they could have been, but just a great
of their
story. And
generation.
yes, absolutely. And how the final push for the Equal Rights Amendment is very much tied to the 2026 elections that are coming up. And so it's a reminder of all that. So just a jam packed issue that I think your listeners and Ms. readers are going to thoroughly enjoy.
And Kathy, with that, I think something really important that's been part of the Ms. legacy and part of the work of the feminist majority is that lawmakers will have something to hold on to as they move forward, both state and federally, with thinking about these issues, whether it is Mifepristone and having a much clearer understanding that this isn't just abortion. Abortion is critically important, but as a fundamental health right, Mifepristone is part of that conversation. And when it's removed from the marketplace, there are going to be many people who suffer, just as you mentioned. And going forward, also, the conversations that are yet to be had still on Epstein and those files. And given that we've recently heard from President Trump with this financial speech to the country and world about how great things are going, the response back about those jobs lost. We've seen hundreds of thousands of them with Black women, but women across the country have been affected by all of this. So our readers and listeners will be able to get so much out of this issue, and so will lawmakers as well.
And we'll be sure that lawmakers receive this issue. We always want to be a resource for policymakers. And you're absolutely right. It contains such good information across the board that I think it will get a lot of attention in the halls of power.
Kathy, thank you so much for all the work that you do with making sure that this critically important magazine puts out the information that matters. We're doing the same on the side of Ms. Studios, and it's always wonderful to be joined by you, Kathy.
Well, thank you, Michelle, and Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year. So, friends, be sure to check out this issue when it hits the newsstands. And in the meantime, you can always take a look at what we have online in our digital space. And be sure to tune into the myriad of our podcasts, from On the Issues to 15 Minutes of Feminism and so much more.